Do you struggle with letting go of things that aren't good for you? If so, stay tuned and I will teach you how to push past emotions and release toxic things. What is going on, everyone? We are back for another episode of Prospering with Christ. I hope that you had a wonderful week last week, and I hope that this week will be just as amazing to you as well. So for today's episode, we are discussing how to stop holding on when God is saying, let go. Many of us don't realize how deep surrendering to God goes. We talk about it all the time. We hear it in church. We share it on social media in quotes. We sing it in songs. We talk about it all the time. But when it's time to actually practice and do it, we struggle with it. And the reason why is because we like to do what feels good to us. God created us to be emotional beings. And so we like to do what makes us feel good. If it makes us happy, because happiness is an emotion that feels good, then we like to gravitate towards that. But if it makes us sad, if it makes us afraid, if it makes us angry, we push away. And the problem with that is that sometimes the things that feel good to us aren't good for us. And sometimes when you're following God, there's going to be moments that don't feel so good. And so as long as you continue to act off of your emotions, to make decisions based on your emotions, you're going to hinder what God has for you, what God has planned for you, what God has promised to do for you. Acting off of our emotions cause us to hold on to things that aren't good for us, and it becomes like an addiction. When you think of a person who has an addiction, they normally like to do things that makes them feel a high. And the reason why is because that high makes them feel good in the moment. And they're so addicted to that high and how it makes them feel that they can't think straight. They have friends and family members who are looking at their lives and looking at their situations, and they're wondering, why can't you see things from our perspective? It's common sense. But to the addict, common sense isn't so common because their judgment is clouded. It's clouded by the addiction. It's clouded by the high. It's clouded by how this drug, how this thing makes them feel. And that is what happens to us. We become addicted to toxic things, and it clouds our judgment. We're half obeying God because we can't think straight. If we had to choose between this thing that makes us feel good and our breakthrough or our desire, we would literally give up on our desires to have these toxic things just because we like the high of it, just because we like the way that it makes us feel. And so we're going to have to learn how to literally control our emotions, to go against our emotions and do things that don't feel so good, to let go of things that do feel good to us. And I know you may be wondering, like, okay, well, what are you talking about? What are we holding on to? Because for a lot of us, we don't view things as an addiction. We don't view things as being hard to let go of because we're addicted to it. And the reason why is because when we think of addiction, our minds literally go to drugs, alcohol, gambling, like something that's a literal common addiction. And we feel like we don't have those types of problems. We're not addicted to anything. We're not struggling to let go of something. But just like a person who is on drugs, a person who is addicted to alcohol, a person who is addicted to gambling, they have a season of being in denial. When they go to rehab, what is the first step that they have to take before they do anything else, before they even go through the rehabilitation process? They have to admit that they have a problem. And the reason why they have to admit that they have a problem is because they are in denial about their addiction. And so some of us are in denial of being addicted to toxic things. And hopefully, after listening to this episode, I can help give you a little bit more clarity on what you've been addicted to, that you need to recognize and let go of. And the first thing that we become addicted to is people. So many of us have toxic people in our lives. Based on our emotions, we love them. They may not even be the greatest person, but they make us happy. Some of us deal with loneliness, and so when we're in their presence, we feel a little bit of comfort, and it makes us feel good inside. And so when God is telling us that this person has served their purpose, it's time for them to go. You can't grow with them. They can't come into the new season. We struggle to let them go. Some of us will literally give up on our desires because God is saying that this person cannot go into the next season. This person served their purpose in your story. I stopped writing them in at chapter 3, and now we're trying to progress to chapter 5. And they can't go to chapter 5 because they ended at chapter 3. And you are so focused on how the person makes you feel, it's clouding your judgment. Where we're fighting God, He's telling us, let go, and we're holding on. We refuse to surrender. We're trying to compromise with God, where we're saying, well, if you just let this person come, I promise I'll do this. Or what if I can just finagle them and put them in my suitcase and they can just come with me? We're trying to compromise with God, and God is saying there's no compromise. I said they can't go. I understand that you love them. I understand that you feel lonely and they fill that void for you, but they're not good for you. And as long as you continue to view things from the perspective of your emotions, you're not going to be able to see that. But one thing that you have to trust is that whenever God removes, He replaces with better. Whenever God removes something, He replaces it with better. Yes, these people are not good for you. Yes, these people have served their purpose in your life. Yes, it is time for these people to go. But you have to trust that as soon as you let them go, God is going to replace them with people who are better for you, who match the new version of you. Remember, I talked about this in a previous episode where I said when God takes us through these seasons and He takes us through these journeys, His plan is to transform us and make us new. You're not going to fit in with the crowd that you're currently in. Because by the time you get to the end of this road, by the time you get to the end of this season, you are going to be new. You have a new character. You have a new mindset. You have a new mentality. You have a new circumstance. And you got to leave these people behind. But it's okay because God has people waiting for you who matches that new person that He's creating. They have the same mindset. They have the same goals. They have the same mentality. They know how to support you and continue to push you to grow. He's not just removing, He's replacing with better. Anything that God removes, He replaces with better. And you have to trust that if you would just let go of these people, God got better in store for you. Just think of the people that you are literally holding on to. You're settling for them. A lot of them are toxic. They don't truly love you. You don't genuinely feel happy. You just feel less lonely. And so you would rather settle and be with them, whether it's a friend, a family member, a spouse, whatever. You would rather settle and be with them than be alone, even though they're not good for you, even though they're not supportive, even though they're not progressing you, even though they're not pushing you towards your goals, even though they're not pushing you towards God. You would settle for them. And God is saying, that's not my best. I have better for you. Would you rather settle for less than you deserve? Would you rather settle for less than I planned for you? Would you rather settle for less than I promised you? Just read the Bible. Look at what God promised you, and you will see that the people you're holding on to is not what God promised for you. They are less than what God promised for you. And God is saying, would you rather settle for less than what I promised for you? Or would you let go, trust me, and see what I planned for you? Stop holding on to people. On top of holding on to people, we have to stop holding on to habits. We have to stop holding on to the way we do things, the way we respond, the way we act, because a lot of us have a lot of habits that are very ungodly. And God is saying these habits cannot go where I'm taking you. These habits are not going in this new season that I'm bringing you to. You have to let go. And so many of us are comfortable with the way we do things. We love cussing people out. We love having road rage. We love what we do when we get off work. We love the way that we treat our children, treat our family. We love the way that we act behind closed doors. And God is saying, I see all of that. And that can't come. And in order for me to transform you and make you new, you got to let go of your habits. You got to stop acting like that. You got to stop responding like that. You have to stop doing that. Are you willing to let go of your habits? And I know that so many of us have these responses and we act the way that we do because we're hiding. We're afraid to be vulnerable. We're afraid to expose ourselves. We're afraid to be naked. We're afraid that we're going to be judged. The last time that we've been vulnerable, we got our heart broken. And so we're acting like this and we're doing these habits because we're building up a wall. And God is saying, you got to knock that wall down. You got to be vulnerable around me because that's the only way I can help you. I can't help you with this front that you're putting on. I can't help you as long as you are acting the way that you are and responding the way that you are. I need you to surrender and give it to me so that we can give you better habits, so that we can transform you inside, so that we can work on you internally. And you want to know a big habit that a lot of us refuse to give up is sins. And the reason why is because sins feel good to us. And they feel good because when we commit them, they are feeding our flesh. And so although everyone tells us that we should give them up, although everyone tells us that God doesn't like it, we continue to do it because we don't want to stop. We love the way that it makes us feel. We love sinning. But this is a prime example of what I was talking about earlier in the episode when I said sometimes we love to do things because it feels good, but it isn't for our good. Sins may feel good, but they are not for our good. Your sin could be the reason why you are depressed. Your sin could be the reason why you are struggling. Your sin could be the reason why you are not having that deep connection with God. And it's not for the reasons that you think, because you think God is just pulling away from you because he hates you or he's mad that you sinned. But the real reason why is that when you sin, you open doors for the enemy to come in. And so now your judgment is clouded. You are hearing from the enemy. You are hearing from God. You are hearing from condemnation. You ever had voices that told you that you are the scum of the earth because you sinned? Have you ever had voices telling you that you should hate yourself or that God hates you because you sinned? That is condemnation. So you're hearing from condemnation. You're hearing from God. You're hearing from the enemy. You're hearing from yourself. You're hearing from the world. And you don't know how to discern God's voice. Your judgment is clouded. It's not that God doesn't like you. It's not that God doesn't want anything to do with you. It's that God can no longer get to you. Sins open a door for our connection with God to drift. That's why we shouldn't sin. We have to go against the fact that it feels good and realize that it's not for our good. And on top of us holding on to sins and habits and people, another thing that we hold on to is our environments. A lot of us have grown up in horrible environments, in horrible families, in horrible neighborhoods. And although we say that we want better, we really struggle to let go of where we came from. And the reason why is because, for one, we want to fit in with everyone. Everyone around us is doing horrible things because they were born into a horrible environment. And although we don't have those interests, we feel left out. And so we want to continue to do those things. We want to continue to fit in. But God is saying the reason why you can't fit in with the people in your environment is because I called you for greater. I called you for better. You were not meant to fit in with them. I have a new crowd for you. There is a reason why the people in your life cannot see the value in you. They're not supposed to. There is a reason why the people in your life feel like you are the odd man out, because you are, because I called you for greater. You're not supposed to fit in. But if you will let go of your environment, if you will let go of your need for validation, I can finally bless you with the plan that I promised for you when I formed you in your mother's womb. I can finally bless you. You were made to be different. You were made to prosper. You were made to break generational curses. You were made to make it out of your environment. You were made to be a leader. You were made to change your circumstances. You were made to change your environment. And you can't change the environment when you're trying to be like the environment. You can't be a leader trying to be like the followers. You gotta be the odd man out. And so if you would just let go of your environment, God has so much more in store for you. I want to ask you a question. How are you enjoying this episode so far? Is this episode teaching you how to let go of toxic things? If so, I want you to do me 3 favors. Favor number 1, I want you to leave a review and let me and other people know how you are enjoying the show. You can leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you are listening to this episode. Leave an honest review and let me and other people know how you are enjoying the show. Favor number 2, if you know anyone who has been struggling to let go of the things that God has been telling them to release, I want you to send this episode to them. Let this episode motivate and encourage them the same way that is motivating and encouraging you. And favor number 3, if you want more tips, resources, and challenges to help you on your journey, make sure that you click the link in the description of this episode and join my Facebook group. Every single day, I give you tips, resources, and challenges to help you on your Christian journey. And I also dive in deeper on the topics that we discuss on the show. But speaking of the show, let's get back to it. As long as we act on our emotions, we are going to hinder our prayers. We can't succeed. We can't progress. We can't reach our breakthroughs acting on our emotions. Because like I said in the beginning of the episode, sometimes we're going to have to go through things that don't feel good. So what are you going to do when those moments come that don't feel so good? What are you going to do when the devil is tempting you with the things of your past that feels good? There's going to be moments in your journey where you're following God and you're getting discouraged because things are going wrong and this season doesn't feel good. And the devil's going to creep in because he loves to deceive us, right? And he's going to try to tempt us. You want to know how he's going to try to tempt us? He's going to tell us, hey, you remember that person that you let go of? Why don't you call them? Because I bet they can make you feel better right now than what God is doing. Remember that sin that you overcame? Why don't you go back to it? Because it's going to give you a high. It's going to make you feel good. It's a way for you to cope with what you're going through. It's a way for you to cope with your circumstances. It's a way for you to cope with your situation. The devil is going to come to us and he's going to try to tempt us to turn back, to go back to the things that we overcame. And as long as we are doing things based on our emotions, we're going to give in every single time. And that is why it's so important for us to take our power back, for us to learn how to go against what we're feeling. Instead of giving in to the emotions, give the emotions to God. Instead of giving in to the emotions and turning back to toxic people and toxic environments and toxic sins, vent to God. Get into your prayer closet and tell God how you are feeling. Don't give in to your emotions. Be disciplined. Learn how to control them so that they no longer hinder you. And when you're feeling that temptation, I want you to ask yourself this question. I know that these things feel good to you, but what have they gotten you this far? Have you been progressing? Have you been succeeding? How have you been mentally? Have you been happy? How have your spiritual walk with God been? What has these things gotten you? What has these people gotten you? What has these sins gotten you? What has your environment gotten you? Are you progressing or do you feel stuck? What has it gotten you so far? For so many of us, when we actually take a moment to reflect and ask ourselves that question, we will realize that it hasn't gotten us anywhere. We also will realize that although it feels good, is it really good? Does it really make me happy? Does it really satisfy me? What's the purpose of having these people in my life if they do nothing but tear me down? They do nothing but abuse me, verbally, emotionally, maybe even physically. They make me feel less than. They make me feel unworthy. Every time I commit this sin, I feel unworthy. I feel undeserving. It hasn't gotten me anywhere. It's like a temporary high. Remember, we were talking about addicts and how they are chasing a temporary high. They do drugs, they gamble, they drink alcohol, they do these things because when they feel high, they feel good. But eventually, the high wears off and they're back to reality. And they have to keep doing it and doing it and doing it over and over and over again to get to a place of feeling good again. And although it feels good, it's killing them. Although the drugs feel good, it's killing your body. It's killing your health. Although gambling feels good, it's killing your family. It's killing your relationships. Although alcohol feels good, it's killing your liver. It feels good, but the part that you can't see is rotting. And one day you look back in regret and you think to yourself, if I knew this was going to be my outcome, I wouldn't have done that. If I knew that this is how things were going to turn out, I would have gave that up a long time ago. But I was so stuck on how it made me feel. I was so stuck on chasing that high. I didn't realize that it was killing me inside. I didn't realize that it was literally breaking me. I didn't realize that I was going to lose everything. I didn't realize that I was going to lose my life. We got to stop chasing that temporary high. Because although it feels good, it's not for our good. It's killing our destiny. It's killing our relationship with God. It's killing our lives. It's killing our plans. It is killing us. And then it's not even making us happy. We're not genuinely happy. We're just temporarily happy. We're settling for temporary happiness when God is promising us joy. When God is promising us freedom, when God is promising us happiness, and we're settling for this when we can have that, it hasn't gotten us far. Why are we holding on to it? And I think that one thing that we have to understand when it comes to, these toxic things that we're holding on to, is that it's supposed to feel good. The thing about God is that God gave us free will. And the reason why God gave us free will is because he really wants us to choose him. He genuinely wants us to choose him. And it would be so easy to choose God if the opposite of God was something we didn't like. If the opposite of God was something that didn't feel good to us. It would be so easy to choose him. But God allowed the opposite option to be something that feels good to us because he wants us to genuinely choose him. To say that I'm going to go against what feels good. I'm going to go against my emotions. I'm going to go against that and turn to God and pick God and choose God. It's supposed to feel good. It's supposed to be a sacrifice. We have to sacrifice the things that feels good to us and choose God. But there is a greater reward for choosing God. You get your breakthrough. You get your promises. You get your desires. You get your happiness. You get your mental health back. You get to experience a life of being genuinely happy instead of temporary happiness. Where I'm only happy while I'm doing this, but then I'm back to being depressed. Where I feel confident instead of unworthy. And the only way to get to that place is to let go. And so if you want to let go of the toxic things that God has been begging you to release, you have to ask yourself, what is it costing you? What is it costing you to hold on to it? Because like I said earlier, the biggest thing that is costing you is your relationship with God. Because as long as you continue to hold on to these things, it's going to cloud your judgment. You can't have God in the things. You got to release the things so that you can fully follow God, so that you can fully discern God. Because let me tell you something, when God is trying to speak to you and he's trying to promise you things that seem impossible, but you're holding on to a toxic relationship with someone who makes you feel unworthy, with someone who tells you that you're never going to amount to nothing, with someone who tells you that nobody loves you, it's going to be so hard for you to trust what God said to you. for you to believe what God said to you, because now your judgment is clouded. It is clouded by what this person put into your mind. It is clouded by what this person is speaking to you. This is why everyone says that when you're trying to progress forward, it's important that you're very intentional with who is in your circle, because the words that they speak into you is going to affect you. The things that they say to you is going to affect you, and it's going to be some unnecessary warfare that you're going to have to go through to overcome what people are saying, to overcome people who are reminding you of where you came from, telling you that you're from the hood and you didn't play football, you didn't play basketball. So how are you going to be a millionaire? You didn't go to college to be a doctor, so how are you going to live in the suburbs? You know how much unnecessary warfare that you're going to have to overcome to go against what those people are saying and believe what God promised you. It's unnecessary. God is saying you need to remove those people now so that when I'm speaking to you, you can hear me. You can believe me. You're not doubting me. You're not doubting the plan. You're not doubting the vision. You have time for the plan. Because what happens if you have people in your life and all they want to do is party, drink, go to the club? But then God is telling you to do something that's going to progress you towards your new life. And they're telling you, man, don't do that. You don't need to do that. You wasting your time. Just come to the club with us. And they're tempting you to do something, and now you're not even moving into what God told you to do. What is it costing you? What is it costing you to hold on to these toxic things? And when you make the decision that you want to release, you got to take some time to be honest with God about why you're struggling to let go. Instead of just being stubborn and not letting go, tell God. Remember, the Bible says, cast your cares on me, for I care for you. Tell God why you are struggling to let go. He cannot help what he doesn't know. If you want his help, because you don't have to let go by yourself. Remember, God is not just with you at the end of the road. He's with you every step of the way. He's with you in the letting go process. He's with you in the grieving process. He's with you in the transformation process. He's with you every single step of the way. And he can't help what he doesn't know. And so you have to be honest with him and tell him why you're struggling to let it go. You also got to ask yourself, even though it feels good, is it good for you? And when you realize that it's not, it's going to be so much easier for you to let go. And then on top of that, when you feel the temptation to hold on, when you feel the temptation to turn back to where you came from, pray. Don't give into the temptation. Pray. Every time you feel tempted, go in your prayer closet, get alone with God. Because like I said, God is with you every step of the way. He's with you in the temptation. And if you will call on him, he will be there for you. And so if you want to let go of the things God has been telling you to let go of, remember to ask yourself, what is it costing you? Even though it feels good, is it good for you? Be honest with God about why you're struggling to let go. And when you feel temptation, pray. And so my challenge for you this week is to think of one thing that you feel that God has been telling you to let go of and ask yourself, why are you struggling to let it go? But that is all that I have for you today. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure that you leave a review and let me and other people know how you are enjoying the show. Also, if you want more tips, resources, and strategies, and more insight on the topics that we discuss in the show, make sure that you join my Facebook group. The link is in the description of the episode. Also, make sure that you follow me on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook at Prospering with Christ. But that is all I have for you today, and I will see you next week.